Alright, so let's continue. Now I've got a little bit of a challenge for you here, and it relates to a common bug that people who are starting out programming may encounter. They're going to start by typing the code int new value equals 50, and the next line I'm going to type if left parentheses new value equals 50, right parentheses, and we'll add a code block like we normally do, and we'll print out a message, this is an error. Right, so my question to you is, what is wrong with this code? So note that IntelliJ is flagging that line 68, with an error. So if we hover over that, we can see it says incompatible types required Boolean found int. So aren't we testing new value, which we know is an int, against the whole number 50, which we know from our primitive types discussion is treated as an int by default? So why are we getting this error? So have a think about why it's doing that. Pause the video if you like and see if you can figure it out. Alright, so welcome back. Well, the problem is the equal sign. Let's talk about the difference between the assignment and the equals to operators. So as you can see in the code we typed, we've declared the new value int using the assignment operator, which is one equal sign, and we assigned the value 50 to it. What we need to do in the code to check whether it's equal to is to not use the assignment operator, which is a single equal sign, but rather we need to use the equals to operator, which has two equal sign. So this is what the code should look like, noting that it's got if in parentheses new value equals 50, and not as we've typed it, new value equals 50. So we're not assigning a value here, we want to test if the values are equal to each other. Right, so back in the code, what we need to do to fix this is we need to come down here and put the second equal sign in, which is now an equals to operator, and we're now correctly comparing the value of new value to the value 50. The error's disappeared, and if we run this code, we're getting the output, which now doesn't make sense because we fixed the error, so we should probably change the output, and we'll put this is true, which would probably make more sense if we were reading the text. Alright, so this is true. Alright, so that's a common problem you'll come across using a single equal sign, which is the assignment operator, instead of two equal signs, which of course is the equals to operator. But let's continue on with that. I want to show you another problem. This time we're going to use a Boolean. So we're going to type Boolean is car is equal to false. Now on the next line I'm going to type a similar thing, if, then in parentheses, is car equals true, noting that I'm using the assignment operator and not the equals to operator. And then I'm going to just print out a message in our code block, which simply says this is not supposed to happen. So what do you think is going to happen in this scenario? Noting that there's no error here. So pause the video if you like and come back and we'll go through it. Alright, so firstly, let's run the code now. And look what's happened there. We've got the output. This is not supposed to happen. We can clearly see that on line 72, we've defined the value of isCar to be false, and it appears at first glance that we're comparing isCar to the value true, and for some reason, the code on line 74 is being executed. And what's more, unlike the int example we used above, when we use the assignment operator instead of the equals to operator, we haven't got an error here. So why isn't IntelliJ flagging this as an error? So in the case of where we had the new value equals 20, in other words, we used the assignment instead of the equals to value, and I'll change that back again. This is why we're getting incompatible types here. So if we hover over that again, so in line 68, new value equals 50, well, that actually returns the value 50, and that's why the error is showing found an int, when in fact what it requires is a Boolean. And that's because the assignment operator returns the value that has been assigned to the variable, and the equals to operator that returns a true or false on whether the two values are the same. Now in the case of the code on line 73, isCar equals true, even though that's an equals operator, that is returning true because the isCar variable is a Boolean and is being assigned to the value true. So that's why we're not getting an error on line 73, when we in fact did get an error on line 68. So I'll just undo that change again to go back to where we were before. So the bottom line is to make sure that you're using the equals to operator where you're testing to see whether things are equal, and you're not using an assignment operator like we're using here. So I'm going to go back and fix this. We're now using the equals to operator. We run the code now. We no longer get the message, and that's because we're using the proper equals to operator. Now just a note about booleans as well, we can simplify the expression we've got on line 73 by removing the equals true altogether and simply having it like so, if is car. Now that's a shortcut and tests to see whether car is set to true, which we were doing previously with the equals to operator. Now we can also do a test for not here. So if we wanted to specifically check that car wasn't equal to true, we could obviously put if is car not equal to true. In this case, it would be testing for false. We could also put if is car is equal to false to specifically check whether it's false, but we can also come up here and put not. So the exclamation mark is the not operator, and what that does is basically tests to make sure that is car is not equal to true. Alright, so the exclamation mark, or what's the not operator, it's also known as the logical complement operator. Now it's for use with booleans, and it tests the alternate value. So we saw is car in parentheses tests for true. By adding the not operator before the value, we're checking the opposite, false in this case. So boolean is car equals false. We can do a test there. You saw me do this in the code before. If parentheses is car is equal false, because we're using the equals to operator, that's just testing for false, but we can also put if and in parentheses not is car to check also if the boolean value is car is false. Now I generally recommend using the abbreviated form of both for two reasons. The abbreviated form here I'm just talking about if parentheses is car or if parentheses not is car, depending whether you're wanting to test for true or false. So the reason I recommend using those is to avoid the potential for error by accidentally using an assignment operator, as we did earlier in the code, but secondly, the code's more concise. Alright, so let's end the video here. In the next video, I want to talk about something called the ternary operator. See you in the next video.